I'm Nate, and this is Holy Land Travel HQ. Today, let's talk about renting a car in Israel and the West Bank. Most of the major rental companies that you find in the US, you can also find in Israel, like Hertz, Avis, Budget, Sixt, Enterprise, Thrifty, and Dollar. The main difference that you'll find between renting a car in the US and Israel is that in Israel, you're not going to get unlimited mileage. If you rent for anything less than 72 hours, you're going to get an allotment of 250 kilometers per day. If you rent for anything between 3 days and 29 days, you're going to get an allotment of 4,000 kilometers. And that's going to be whether you do 4 days or 15 days, you're going to get 4,000 kilometers. If you go over 29 days, so if you do 30 days or more, you're going to get prorated based on 4,000 kilometers per month. So that turns out to be about 133 kilometers per day. Every time you go over the allotment for the day or for the period, it's going to cost you 50 cents per kilometer. When booking your rental car, it might be easy to go through a third-party provider like an online travel website like Orbitz, or your airline, or the actual company's .com website that you want to rent from. But I recommend going through the company's co.il website, which is the Israeli website. So if you're going to rent from Budget, instead of going to budget.com, go to budget.co.il. And the reason why I say this is because if you rent from the Israeli website, it's going to give you all the Israeli fees up front. Whereas if you rent it from a third-party provider website like Orbitz or the .com site, it might not give all the fees up front, and you might think that you're getting a deal when you're actually not. When you go to get the car, you're going to have to pay that stuff anyway. The other reason why I say this is because if you book through the .com website or you book through a third-party provider, when you go to pick up the car, they might not be able to find your reservation. I actually tried this when I was in Israel. I booked it through Sixt.com, and I also booked another one later on through Sixt.co.il. And when I went to pick up the car for the reservation that I booked through Sixt.com, the front desk had a hard time finding the reservation because I'd booked it outside of the country rather than inside the country. And then I also didn't get the deal that I thought I was getting in terms of the fees. When you go to pick up the rental in Israel, the company's going to do the same thing that the companies in the United States do. And that's ask you if you want to buy the rental car insurance for the period of the rental. I would actually recommend doing this, and the reason why is because your car insurance in the States probably doesn't cover overseas car rentals. And the second thing is, if you do end up getting into an accident, the thing that you don't want to have is having to deal with a third-party provider or having to pay out of pocket for a rental car while you're back home in the United States for an accident or anything that happened to a car in Israel. So rental car insurance in Israel costs about $26 to $30 a day, which is a little expensive compared to the United States, but it gives you the peace of mind knowing that it's going to be taken care of if anything happens to the car. One thing that I noticed in Israel, and in particular in Jerusalem, is that a lot of people drive beat up cars. They don't take the time to take care of them. As you drive around town, you're not going to see a lot of car washes and people getting up early on the weekend in order to go wash their cars and take care of them. And this reflects in how people drive. When you go to pick up your rental car, you need 3 documents. The first is your US driver's license, the second is your passport, and the third is your visa. Most likely, you'll have a B2 tourist visa, which means that you can travel in Israel for less than 90 days. If you have one of the other visas, you're going to have to pay a VAT tax of 17%. If you're planning to tour Israel on your own, driving in Jerusalem will prove to be difficult. The streets are narrow and crowded, but most of what you're going to be doing is in and around the Old City. There is parking in the Old City, but it's only for those who live and work in the Old City, and they have to have a pass in order to get in. There are a couple gates where you'll see cars entering into the Old City, and there's turnstiles that go in. But keep in mind that those turnstiles are not pay-to-enter turnstiles. They're actually pass holder entrances, and you have to have that pass in order to get through. Again, everything you're going to be doing in Jerusalem is in and around the Old City, with the exception of the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial and the Israel Museum, which is at the end of the rail line that you can catch on Jaffa Street. You're going to be doing a lot of walking, so you don't really need a car anyway. Your hotel will probably have parking. They may charge you for it, but it's probably going to be the best parking you're going to get in Jerusalem anyway. If you have a longer stay in Jerusalem, you might want to think about turning your rental car in and then picking up another one when you leave to save some money. Juggling cars can be inconvenient, but it might be the only option you have because of what I'm about to talk about next. The question that I get asked the most is, can I drive a rental car into the West Bank? And the answer is yes and no, but mainly no. Rental companies will not allow you to take their rental cars into the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, or outside the country. What this mainly means in the West Bank is off the main highways. The one thing that I don't know is if they actually track you with a GPS device or if they only find out if you get into an accident and have to report it. In the West Bank, you're allowed to travel on 3 main highways, but you can't get off them. The first is Route 60, which is the main north to south route through the West Bank. It'll hit sites and cities like Bethlehem, Herodium, Jerusalem, Shiloh, Nablus, and Jacob's Well. The second is Route 1, which is the main east to west route that goes from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea. On the west side of Jerusalem, Route 1 goes down to Tel Aviv. Once you get to the Dead Sea, you can check out Qumran and the 3 northern Dead Sea beaches, which are Bien Kini Beach, Kalia Beach, and Neve Midbar. And you could also check out the Jordan River baptismal site. The third highway is Route 90, which is the main north to south route on the Israeli side of the Jordan River Valley. The southern end of the West Bank ends on Route 90 at a checkpoint just north of Masada. So the easiest way to get to Masada from Jerusalem is to go down Route 1 and then take a right and go on Route 90 south until you get there. Further south from Masada are the southern Dead Sea beaches at Ein Bokek. On the northern end of the West Bank on Route 90, there's a larger checkpoint than there is on the southern end. On both Route 90 and Route 60, there are checkpoints going into and out of the West Bank. One thing to keep in mind when going through a checkpoint is that the guards are looking for very specific things. They're probably going to know that you're a tourist and they'll probably pass you through, but if they do ask for your passport and visa, make sure to have those things ready. Do not joke with them or give them any reason to stop you. Another thing that you do not want to do is give a ride to somebody that you do not know from inside the West Bank into Israel. And lastly, even though Herodium is technically an Israeli national park, it's off the beaten path, and I wouldn't say that it's within the rental car company's limits in terms of driving in the West Bank. If you drive a rental car into the West Bank and get into an accident, you will most likely incur the cost to repair or replace the car, as well as the cost of any damages that you caused, whether it was to other people or to property or other cars. The thing at stake here is jurisdiction. If you get into an accident, the rental car company, or rather the insurance company, can't go into the West Bank and appeal to the local authority about the incident. Furthermore, because the areas in the West Bank are less developed, the rental car companies and the insurance companies are taking on more liability if they did let you go into these areas. At the end of the day, the rental car companies tell you not to go into the West Bank for legal reasons. Legally, they have to tell you not to go into the West Bank in order to have the legal justification to go after you in court if need be for violating the contract. I'm sure that these companies know that people go into the West Bank with their cars. From an honest tourist and Christian perspective, I think that there's a better option here, which I'm going to talk about next. Ultimately, it would be more than just a minor inconvenience to have to deal with legal and financial issues from home for an accident or an incident that you got involved in while you were in Israel. There's a few rental car companies in East Jerusalem, which is technically part of the West Bank, that you can rent a car from that allows you to go anywhere in the West Bank. One of my classmates at Jerusalem University College did this quite frequently. Her program had her going to a village near Bethlehem and she needed to rent a car to get there. The two rental companies that she used quite frequently was Dollar Rent-A-Car, which is spelled DOLLAH, not dollar. And the second one was Jerusalem Rent Car. I'll leave links to both of the companies in the description below. In terms of the rental car inventories of these companies, they're not the same as the ones you'll find at the airport, but they're also not bad. Driving in Israel is not difficult at all, but there are frustrations. In Israel, the traffic patterns and signs go off the Vienna Convention for road signs and signals. These are the same ones that you'll find in the rest of the world except for the United States. All of the direction signs are in Hebrew, Arabic, and English, and you will drive on the right-hand side of the road. Unlike the United States, where city streets are designed in grids, Israel is much like Europe and Asia, where roads might not go where you think they're going to go. Because of this, I highly recommend either getting a GPS device or using Google Maps. Just like every other place in the world, Israel has its frustrations in driving. The first is traffic lights. If you're the first person in line at a traffic light, before the red light turns green, it's going to momentarily turn yellow. As soon as it turns yellow, everybody behind you is going to start honking. Don't feel pressured to go just because of the honking. One of the things that I learned in Israel is that honking is a national sport. One of the other frustrations that I have is if you turn your blinker on to change lanes, people don't let you in. But this is very similar to what I experienced in Southern California, so I'm kind of used to it. Outside of the cities, it's much like the United States. There's off-ramps on highways to go to gas stations. Strip malls have free parking. Many of the tourist sites have large parking lots with free parking. If you go to Haifa or any of the beach cities, you either find free parking in like a dirt parking lot or street parking. Some of the street parking might have meters next to them that you have to pay for, or they might be free. Currently, the gas prices in Israel have been fluctuating between about $7 a gallon to $7.18 a gallon. That compares to the Israeli shekel per liter to 6.50 to 7 shekels per liter. Something to note about the fuel in Israel. It's much different than in the United States. In the US, we get 87 octane, 89 octane, and 93 octane. 87 is regular, which is the cheapest gas you can get. In Israel, it's 95 octane. So the prices, although it seems more expensive in Israel on average, the reason why it's more expensive is because it is a higher octane. I've had a few people contact me and say that it's roughly the same price as the United States, but in all actuality, you're going to be paying out of pocket more because you can only get 95 octane in Israel, whereas in the United States you can get 87 octane. When buying fuel, the screen on the pump is only going to be in Hebrew and there's no options to have it in English. So you have a couple different options. The first is to ask for help. And the second is to download Google Translate onto your iPhone, and you can actually put it up to the screen and it'll automatically translate whatever is in front of the camera. So it's going to ask you two questions. The first question is what the license plate of the car is. The number of digits on the license plate is 7 digits. So what you can do is you can either enter the license plate digits, or you can enter the numbers 1 7 times, 9 7 times, 0 7 times, or you can just do 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. The second question that the screen will ask you is what your Israeli ID number is. But because you're a tourist, you're not going to have an Israeli ID number. An Israeli ID is 9 digits. So what you can do is you can enter 1 9 times, 9 9 times, 0 9 times, or just enter 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. For more details on getting gas, Oren at travelingisrael.com made a great YouTube video on the topic. I'll leave the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and if you like the content in today's video, please like and subscribe to keep me in your feed and help me create my channel.